word power, we'll see in a minute, is actually the word for God. E-L. L. But it's little g in this sense. It is in my power, the power of my hand to do you hurt. But God, that's Elohim, of your father, spake unto me yesternight, saying, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Jacob answered and said unto him. We'll get into Jacob's answer here in just a minute. What we have first is we have Laban with his complaints. Okay, let's go back and see if I can rehearse for you just a little bit. Jacob has been sent away from his father's house by his mother and his father. Well, he had lied to his father, and there's a large circumstance. Esau was going to kill his brother, and so it was time for him to leave. In other words, he was forced out of the house. And he leaves, and about 3 days' journey, he stops and spends the night in a little town. Well, it's a little place called Luz. It was off to the side, and he put his head on a rock. He kind of laid out on a rocky area, made some rocks for a pillow. That's different than today, right? He didn't have silk pillowcases over cotton pillows. He just was sleeping on a rock. And during that time, he has a dream, and he dreams of a ladder. At the head of the ladder was God. And he dreamed about the angels coming and going. And when he woke up from the dream, he said, this is the place of God. I didn't realize it was the place of God. And he built an altar and he worshiped God. He poured oil on it and he made a vow unto God. It was at this place that Jacob's life changed. Jacob became what we would call today born again. He was a new child of God. He was a believer in God. His whole life changed. Getting to this point, he walked to this point, and he's on his way to Haran up in Syria, and it's about 500 miles, 450 miles of walking. That's a trip. I live about 40 miles from here, and I wouldn't think of walking here. No, but 450 miles, no thank you. But that was back in a long time ago. And he had spent those 3 nights, he had met the Lord, and from that point on he had a new desire in his life. And that desire was to serve God and to please God. And God had told him to go on to Haran and to serve, to find a wife there. He gets there, and Laban is the brother of Rebekah, his mother. He meets this beautiful girl at the well, and he decides he's in love with her and wants to marry her. He kisses her. He just met her. But, he was getting old at that time, so I guess that's the first woman he met or something. I don't know what the deal was. But he should have prayed about it, because we know the story. That's not the one that he got. But he met Laban, and Laban set him up and said, okay, you can marry her, serve 14 years, and you can have her. Well, after 14 years, y'all know the story, there was a wedding. And one thing we learned about this wedding is they had a party before the wedding. Evidently, Jacob, well, he must have had something at the party that, well, he partied too much. Because he wakes up the next morning and Leah is his wife, not Rachel. And I think that Leah is one of the sweetest women in the Bible. I look at Leah so differently than what I looked at her before. I look at Leah as just, God just blessed her. I mean, he blessed her with children, but not just children. He blessed her with Judah, who brought David into this world, and through these series of births, who brought Mary into this world, or Joseph into this world, and Mary into this world. Both Joseph and Mary came out of the seed of David. And Bathsheba, one from Nathan and one from Solomon. And then she brought forth another son, older than Judah, and that was Levi. And if you follow Levi through history, it was Moses and Aaron and Eleazar, all the way down to John the Baptist. I love Leah. What a sweet, wonderful woman she was. But that isn't who he wanted. So he worked a week for Leah, and then he gets Rachel. They throw her in, and now he has 2 wives. That's this many. And he serves for another 7 years for those 2 wives. Well, you know the story there. Leah begins to have children. Rachel can't have children. Rachel says to her handmaid, you take Zilpah and have children with her, and they will be on my knee. In other words, I'll adopt them. I'll treat them as my children. And so Zilpah had 2 children, Dan and Naphtali. And then Leah said, well, take Bilhah, because I'm not having children. And so he had 2 more children with them. And within about a 7-year period of time, he ended up with like 11 children. That's pretty good. And now he's going to serve. He's there. He has been serving for just those children. I believe that Jacob was given some money, or was allowed to make some money to provide for his wives. How else would he do that? Because we're going to see here in just a minute what he says to Laban about how he served him. But now we find that he has served for another 6 years. He serves just for his cattle. So he says to Laban, here's the situation. Laban, he didn't work this out. Jacob worked this out. Jacob said, I'll take your sheep and I'll give you all the white sheep, the perfect sheep. I'll give you all the black goats, the perfect goats. And I'll take those that are spotted and ring-streaked and all of that. I'll take those that are the imperfect ones. And so God gave him the spotted ones and just loaded him up. He had the most beautiful herd of spotted sheep and ring-streaked goats that you could see on the planet. But no white ones, very few white ones. And so when at the end of the 6 years, the sons of Laban were saying, wait a minute, that wasn't a good deal. And evidently during this period of time, Laban is telling Jacob, he's changing things on Jacob all the time through this. Understand, Laban is a Syrian, a non-believer. He is an idol worshiper. He doesn't believe in the God of Jacob. Even though he knows about the God of Jacob, and he recognized Jacob's love for God and how God had blessed Jacob. But now we found that Jacob, in the middle of the night or early morning, took all of his herd of sheep and goats and camels and mules and the servants that he had obtained during that 6-year period of time, and he loaded everybody up. He came and he calls his wives to him, and he says to them, I'm leaving. They said, we'll go with you. Matter of fact, what Rachel was saying was, well, we have nothing here. Back in those days, you know, it's kind of like she was talking about, we have no inheritance here. Understand, women didn't really have an inheritance in that day. A woman's inheritance was their husband. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. But that's where, if the husband sons would have had the inheritance, and they may have taken care of her, but she wouldn't have received anything from the family. But because they were married, their inheritance was their husband. And Jacob was blessed of God, and they said, we'll go with you. So in the middle of the night, Jacob stole away, or in the early morning, whatever it was. He took all of his place, and he was 3 days away from Laban. That's where he was building up his flock or his herds of animals. And so he took off, and before Laban could find out that he was gone, a few days had passed. Now, our story here begins. This is 10 days after Jacob had left, or maybe 13. I don't know. But we know it's 10 for sure, that it was 10 days that Laban took off after Jacob, and it took him 10 days to find him and to catch him. And so now what we have is Laban is angry. I can just picture in Laban's mind, he has been tricked by the trickster. Laban was a supplanter better than Jacob could have ever been. He tricked Jacob into all of these things, marrying the wrong woman and then working for him for nothing for 14 years, building up his herd of sheep and making him rich. And so he tricked Jacob over and over and over and over again. But now Jacob has tricked him. Jacob has tricked him. And he don't like it. But something else happened. Rachel, when she found out they were leaving, went to her father's house and stole some of his idols. I don't know if they were solid gold. I don't think it matters. I don't think that's what she wanted, was the gold. She didn't tell her husband that she had the idols. But she stole those idols. Why? Why did Rachel steal idols? She's been living with a man that loves God, a man that would pray unto God, a man that is blessed of God. She's living with a man that worships Almighty God. Even her father, Laban, recognized that. So why did she steal those idols? Now, these idols, people say, they were nothing more than that what might be for superstition. It's amazing. There's some religions that will have 3,000 gods. Laban is upset because Jacob left him, and Jacob wasn't treating him right and giving him the sheep that he should have been giving him, because God had been giving Jacob the ringstake and the spotted sheep. He was upset about that, but it seems to be that his greatest the greatest thing he was upset about is he lost his gods. Now let me ask you a question. What kind of God can be stolen? Do you want to worship a God that somebody can steal from you? You see what I'm saying? It's like, do you want to worship a God that can be stolen? A God that somebody made with their hands? Do you understand that anything you or I make, if we worship that, what sense does that make? We made it. If it were possible, it ought to worship us. What are people thinking? You go to Taiwan, Vietnam, you go and you have these huge idols, and everybody is worshiping these idols, but you know, you can go into some of our homes and find idols. I've been in gardens where they had an idol sitting out there. I used to see cars more. I don't see it today as much, but we had metal. We didn't have plastic cars. Back in my day, we had metal, but you know. And they would stick idols up on their dash or hang idols from their mirrors. You I don't know. What are people thinking? Why would you? And he's come 10 days. Every day he's talking to his sons. He's becoming more and more and more and more angry. If God had not intervened, it would be, as Jacob is going to say, God, you would have taken my daughters away from me. He would have left Jacob with nothing if he had left him with his life. So what we have today is we have Laban has now overtaken Jacob. He's pitched, they're at Mount Gilead, so they're about 300 miles from where they left. And that's a pretty fast journey, 300 miles in 10 days. That's cranking it out. Since I've had my heart surgery, I'm out in the mornings and I walk fast, and I have like an 18-minute and I think the other day was 36-second mile. I'm passing regular walkers on the street, and so I only go about 1.25 miles. These people, I don't know how they do this. Now, if they're riding camels, they're riding mules, they're probably going to kick out a few more miles. Plus, they probably rode from daylight to dark, which may have been more 10 to 12 hours instead of an 8-hour day. And they overtook them in 10 days, and they pitched their tent now in the same area. In other words, they can probably see the lights of the fires of Jacob's. They found him. They know. They can hear the bleating of the sheep. And so they have found him. And so Laban has now come to that point. And Mount Gilead is probably, they're both at Mount Gilead. Some think they might be at Mount Pisgah that we're going to see in verse number 49. But they may be one on one side or one up a little further on the mountain than the other. But they're pretty close together. And Laban said to Jacob, so he comes, he's meeting Jacob now. What hast thou done? Okay, here we come. Laban, if you remember, we've already talked about it in the verses past. God woke him up in the middle of the night and said, take heed what you say to Jacob. You don't say anything good or bad. In other words, you are not going to mistreat him. You're going to treat him with respect. Now, when God wakes you up and you don't worship God, I think that's amazing in itself. That God would wake up an idol worshiper, shake him and say, don't you take heed what you say. And you wake up and you're still an idol worshiper. That's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. Look, you just had God speaking to you, the God, the one that created everything. Actually, the word was Elohim, so he's talking not only to the God, but the judge. You and I and all of mankind will be judged by this God. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done? Thou hast stolen away unawares, carried away my daughters as captives with a sword. No, he didn't. They could have stayed. They didn't want to stay with their father. They loved their husband, and they're going to go with him. And then he said, wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me? And didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth and songs and tabret and harp? This is amazing. It's like 120 years before this, Rebecca, Eleazar, the priest of Abraham, went there and Laban, Rebecca's brother, was there, and he was trying to get that man to stay another 10 days, if you remember. But they sent Rebekah away with prayers and blessings. Now we've come 120 years later, and they want to have a party. If I'm Jacob, I want nothing to do with another Laban party. You see what I'm saying? No, the last party you give me was a little unusual. So I don't want nothing to do with another party. He said you stole away secretly. Well, Jacob did. Jacob did. And he'll explain it in just a minute. And really, Laban would not have done that. Had Jacob stuck around, the chances are Laban would have done everything he could to keep Jacob there. Jacob was not a warrior. If you follow the life of Jacob, he's more of a passive individual. We're going to see him in a few chapters at Shechem and some of the things there and things that he could have done, but his children ended up doing it. But here we find that you have not suffered me to kiss my sons, my daughters. Thou hast done foolishly in so doing. So he's commenting, he's trying to ridicule, he's trying to hold back. He's saying what he thinks, but he's trying to hold it back. I can see him as angry. I can see him as he is approaching Laban as angry. But, in verse 29, but the God of your father spake unto me yesternight that thou should take heed not to speak to Jacob either good or bad. He's saying here, he said, it's in my power, the power of my hand to do thee hurt. John Gill wrote, you could have no more escaped it or got out of it or withstood me than you could God himself. That's what he is saying in essence. So it appears Laban had brought a large number of men with him, and they were going to, their whole goal was to take the sheep away from Laban and the daughters and the sons away from Laban and send him home packing with nothing. But God, don't you love those when you go through those in the Bible? Every time you go through the Bible and you get into that where you have all of this tragedy and all of this bad and all of these things are happening, the armies are going and tearing things up, and then you have these two words start the next sentence. But God. A change is happening. A change is going to take place. But God, he is going to take over. And so in this instance, Jacob might very well not have made it through the night, but God. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? So here we come with the true meaning, the true reason that he is gone. He's gone because he's upset because he got cheated by the cheater. He got supplanted by the supplanter, and so he said, "I understand that you want to be with your father." He had been there for 20 years, and he says, "I understand you want to be with your father, but now you've stolen my gods." Now we have Jacob's answer. Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me." He feared that he would take the daughters from him. He feared that, he knew. I think he knew what would happen if Laban got a chance to do it. Laban was getting angrier and more angry each week. "Because I was afraid, thou wouldst by force take my daughters. Wherefore, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live." That's a very strong phrase. Jacob did not believe anybody had taken the gods. Jacob did not believe that there would have been anybody so foolish in his party to take the gods. And what he said is, if someone has, may they not live. Do you understand that Rachel did not live long after this? Rachel died giving birth to Benjamin sometime after this. The question is always in my mind, as we've talked about this several times, was Rachel saved? Was Rachel a child of God? You know, when you've heard, you know, if you go to trial, would there be enough evidence to convict you or to convince the jury you were a child of God? We have to look, we always are looking for evidence of salvation. I've mentioned it before, but I have preached many funerals. The hardest funerals to preach are those where you ask the children, was there ever a time that your father or your mother trusted Christ as Savior? Can you give me an indication? Well, they went to church on Easter. Every Easter and every Christmas they went to church. Or they were good people. Or you know, there was a time, I think, that they might have went to church. I saw them baptized. Yeah, but evidence of salvation. What? Listen, if I pray that my children all know I know Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Now, what do you say? You're a preacher. They should know that. No, there's a lot of preachers that I don't believe are saved. They don't give a lot of evidence of salvation. Now, I'm not being critical. This is in God's eyes who is and who isn't. I don't know who is and who isn't. This is in God's eyes. But was she or was she not? Why did she steal these things? This is crazy to me. And with whomsoever thou findest the gods, let him not live. Before our brethren, discern thou what is thine with me. What do I have that's yours? For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen the idols. Then we go down to the next verse. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into maidservants' tents. Why did he go to Jacob's tent? He knew Jacob. Jacob would never, in his wildest dreams, think of stealing an idol. And they found enough. Then they went into Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. And Rachel had taken the images and he put them in a camel's furniture and set upon them. Now, from all I can gather, the camel furniture is like a saddle that was used for camels. And when they would take the saddle off, they might use it for a rug or something on the floor. This wasn't like our saddles on the horses today, where you can grab a hold of a saddle horn and jump up on it and go. Well, I don't know if any of you could jump up on it, but put your foot in the stirrup and throw your foot over it with help. I'm getting in trouble. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel furniture and set upon them. And Laban searched the whole tent. The word searched here, the way this is worded is, Laban, those idols, number one, were gone. He knew they were gone. And number two, he knew somebody took them. And number three, he knew somebody in Jacob's tent took them. And so he is searching, and the way this is worded, he goes through every everything that's in the tents. He checks everything, everywhere. I mean everywhere, except one place. And Rachel had taken the images, put them in the candle furniture, and he searched the tent. And she said unto her father, let it not displease my Lord. Don't be angry with me, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. Now you ladies understand what that is. And he searched, but he found not the images. Now, Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin? Thou hast hotly pursued after me. What have I done? What have I done to deserve that? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, thou hast found of all thy household stuff, and is set before my brethren and my brethren and thy brethren, that may be judged. Whatever you found, bring it out. Let's look at it, and let's judge and see if it's mine or yours. Jacob had nothing to feel that he felt like he'd done nothing wrong. He hadn't done anything wrong. All the sheep, if he went out to look for white sheep amongst all the sheep, there wouldn't be any. They were all spotted and ring straight. If you went to look at the goats, they were not black goats, but they were black and white goats and some brown goats. Jacob said, bring it here, set it here, your brethren and mine, look and see whose is it. This 20 years I've been with thee, the ewes and the she-goats have not cast their young, have been aborted. The rams of the flock have I not eaten. In other words, Jacob said, I haven't even taken from the flock, your flock, for my own food. He would have purchased it somewhere else. I haven't even taken of your flock. The ewes and thy goats have not cast their young. They've all been born alive, or I have paid you back for all of it. I have stolen nothing from you. That which is torn of the beast, I brought to thee. Thus I was to the day the drought consumed me and the frost of night. He's a farmer. He's a rancher. They work from sunrise to sunset. They work from the heat of the day to the cold of the night. They work in the snow. They work in it. All of this I did for you. And now you're chasing me. All right. Father, thank you for this wonderful day. I pray you'll bless, Lord. Bless this, Brother Han, his message this morning. Give us a great day today. I pray that you'll use us to honor you and everything that we say and do this morning. In Jesus' precious name.